The story of the Jeep Comanche doesn't begin on a highway or inside a factory. It begins in places most commercials never show: tight grocery store parking lots, narrow residential driveways, small job sites where a full-size pickup looks oversized before the engine is even turned off. By the end of the 1970s, Americans weren't asking for more truck. They were asking for less bulk. Something that could carry lumber during the week, fit between two sedans at night, and not empty the fuel gauge before the weekend arrived. That quiet shift didn't announce itself with billboards. It showed up slowly, in worn work gloves tossed on the compact truck dashboards, in toolboxes that didn't need 8 feet of bed to feel useful. Japanese pickups filled those spaces first. Simple shapes, thin doors, steel wheels, and engines that didn't pretend to be anything more than reliable. Detroit noticed, but from a distance. Instead of building their own small trucks immediately, American brands took shortcuts. Imported trucks arrived at ports, received new badges, and rolled into dealerships wearing familiar names. On the surface, they looked domestic. Underneath, they told a different story. For a while, buyers didn't care. The trucks did the job. But paperwork matters in the auto industry, and trade rules slowly turned those shortcuts into liabilities. Costs rose, margins tightened, and suddenly small trucks had to be truly American again. Ford responded first. Chevrolet followed. Dodge found a middle ground. By the mid-1980s, the compact truck segment wasn't an experiment anymore. It was an established battlefield with clear winners and little patience for late arrivals. Jeep arrived late. At the time, Jeep belonged to American Motors Corporation, a company that knew exactly how limited its resources were. There was no room for mistakes. Every new model had to justify its existence before the first bolt was tightened. Jeep had already flirted with the idea of pickups before. Long wheelbases, stretch bodies, half solutions that never quite found an audience. Those attempts faded quietly, leaving behind lessons but no lasting product. What Jeep did have, though, was the Cherokee. When the new Cherokee appeared in the early 1980s, it didn't look like anything else Jeep had sold before. The body was boxy but compact. The weight was lower. The structure was modern. It felt less like farm equipment and more like a vehicle designed for everyday life. Inside ANC, someone asked a dangerous question. What if a pickup didn't start as a truck? The Cherokee's unibody construction made engineers uncomfortable. Trucks weren't supposed to be built that way. A pickup bed concentrates weight. It twists frames. It punishes weak structures. Every rule said this idea should stay on paper. Instead, Jeep split the idea in half. The front of the vehicle kept the Cherokee's unibody strength. Doors shut solidly. The cab stayed rigid. The ride stayed controlled. Behind the cab, everything changed. A real frame took over. Thick steel rails ran lengthwise, designed to absorb load and stress the way a truck should. Two different philosophies welded into one vehicle. When the Comanche finally appeared, it didn't shout. It didn't wear aggressive styling or oversized badges. It looked honest. Straight body lines, a bed that looked usable, not decorative, wheels that expected dirt, not applause. Underneath, the suspension told the real story. The rear leaf springs were longer than expected, designed not just to carry weight, but to flex instead of fight the road. Up front, coil springs in proper geometry helped the tires stay planted instead of hopping over uneven ground. Payload numbers didn't sound impressive in advertisements, but on job sites, they mattered. This small pickup could carry more than people expected, and it did so without feeling fragile. Engine options reflected the era's uncertainty. The base four-cylinder didn't promise excitement. It promised mornings where the engine turned over without complaint, oil changes instead of rebuilds, work instead of drama. The V6 option looked better on paper than it felt on the road. More cylinders didn't always mean better performance. Buyers noticed. Then there were the diesels. Rare, odd, and very much a product of their time. An industry still searching for answers tried different paths, and the Comanche briefly became part of that experiment. Everything changed when the inline-six arrived. That engine altered the personality of the truck. The sound was deeper. The pull felt steady instead of rushed. It didn't beg to be revved. It simply moved forward with confidence. Owners began to trust it in a way numbers can't explain. For the first time, the Comanche felt complete. Trim levels expanded. Some versions stayed bare and practical. Others added small touches that made the truck feel personal instead of purely utilitarian. Graphics, badges, interior details, nothing excessive. Just enough to give buyers a sense of choice. Special editions appear briefly, tied to moments in American culture. A different stripe here, a badge there. Small details that turn an ordinary pickup into a time capsule. By the late 1980s, the Comanche had grown into itself. The bugs were sorted. The power made sense. The identity was clear. And then the paperwork changed. When Chrysler acquired AMC, Jeep entered a corporate structure that valued clarity over character. Each brand received boundaries. Each overlap became a problem to be solved. Jeep was assigned adventure. Dodge was assigned trucks. The Comanche sat directly between those lines. It didn't matter that it sold consistently. It didn't matter that owners respected it. On internal planning charts, it conflicted with another product wearing a Dodge badge. Supporting both would divide attention, marketing, and production resources. The simpler solution was also the coldest one. The Comanche stopped evolving, no dramatic announcement, no farewell campaign. 1 year it existed. The next, it didn't. Production numbers froze. Tooling moved on. The line went quiet. Roughly 190,000 units were built. Enough to leave a footprint. Not enough to become permanent. In the years that followed, small trucks grew larger. Comfort replaced simplicity. Compact pickups slowly lost their original purpose, becoming closer to full-size trucks with smaller beds. Jeep moved forward with SUVs, building its reputation on snow-covered trails, desert dust, and the promise of freedom beyond pavement. The idea of a Jeep pickup never truly disappeared, it just waited. When Jeep finally returned to trucks decades later, it didn't look back to the Comanche for its name. The comeback carried the Gladiator badge instead, reaching further into Jeep's history for a symbol that felt heavier, louder, and more deliberate. The Comanche remained what it always was, a quiet chapter. It wasn't a failure. It wasn't a mistake. It was a vehicle built with the right ideas, placed into the wrong corporate moment. That's why it still feels unresolved. If you ever see a Comanche today paint faded, bed scratched, engine still running, you're looking at something the industry doesn't build anymore. A pickup that wasn't chasing trends, wasn't oversized on purpose, and wasn't afraid to be different. Some vehicles disappear because the market rejects them. Others disappear because they don't fit neatly into a plan. The Jeep Comanche belongs to the second group. And those are usually the ones worth remembering.